This is how we're talking about building yield into it, and I'm going to let him tell that story.
Awesome, because I can't tell that one.
No.
So obviously Scott's got a lot of things going on, and one of the things that we said was the ultimate settlement layer is Bitcoin, right? Like it is an unforgeable one. It is the largest one. It is the most liquidity of all, and Ordinals created this opportunity to now move some of these ideas and business models over to Bitcoin. But Ordinals needed to be better, and they needed to do more. And so I met Rob, who's my technical co-founder of BlockCity, and I met Justin, who's our founder and fearless leader in BitFans, and all these things started to come together because Scott and I have been working on what we're going to do with this thing. And so what we decided to do is launch this collection exclusively on Ordinals. But it's a different kind of ordinal. It's a supercharged ordinal. And what that means simply is that this is an ordinal that allows you to do a couple things. So as the artist, so let's talk about the creator side first. As the artist, what he can choose to do is he can choose to airdrop. So again, maybe we'll airdrop you your NFT when it becomes available after you take your printed one home. Why would we do that? We'll talk about that in a second. Maybe we'll sell it to you. We don't know. But when we do whatever one of those things we do, because it has BPILs, which is Bitcoin Passive Income Layer Specification. That's what it stands for. But it's a lot easier to say BPILs. It's like a vitamin. It's easier to swallow. So BPILs inside of your ordinal take it from being a static speculative gamble, which is if you bought an ordinal, you've seen them decrease in aggregate pretty much 75% since December, but Bitcoin's going the opposite direction. So that's not good. What this does is this creates a peg to Bitcoin. So you're now able to infuse Bitcoin after the fact and ongoing into your asset without it ever leaving your non-custodial wallet. And then through a decentralized stacking pool on Stacks and then a lending pool that we're building natively on top of BlockCity, you'll be able to generate multiple sources of yield to create a consistent, call it 5% annualized return for the collector or the holder and a 1% return for the artist. Now that's different than a royalty, because anyone who's been an artist who did a collection and said, I'm going to sell you my music, or I'm going to sell you my sneaker, and then I'm going to stay with the recurring revenue stream, which was the promise of NFTs on everywhere from Ethereum to everything else. As soon as I do that, the smart contract has to still be honored by the marketplaces or by the other people, right? And when it became optional, because we had to make sure OpenSea didn't have all the accounts, people said, you know what, it's optional if you want to pay it. Well, that destroyed guys like Scott, because the whole promise of this thing was that I'm going to sell you something, you're going to be in business directly with me, and then we're going to share in this economy together. Well, with Bitcoin, that becomes, unfortunately, irrevocable. So a supercharged ordinal is one that has a Bitcoin peg to it, and BPILs is what delivers that peg. And essentially, if you want to nerd out on it, you can ask Rob and I, and we talk about the weeds. But why the technical is it takes all the framework benefits of a stablecoin, which is liquidity, and removes the counterparty risk and the lack of transparency. Because there's no need for a third-party token. There's no altcoin involved in this. When you mint the token, as Scott will, or an ordinal, and you put that painting wrapped in it, right? That painting now has an ordinal on layer 1 that's inscribed on Bitcoin that is pointing to the location of that digital twin on the moon, which is kind of cool in itself. But now on layer 2, what happens with low gas and with Bitcoin finality and with permanence is you infuse a peg to that original ordinal. So you're using your native asset as the token. You don't need another token. And the new ordinal is pointing to that and telling you what kind of IV has. So now you're literally putting an intrinsic value into it, which makes the floor price always the price of Bitcoin. So it removes the risk of a dump, because unless you think Bitcoin goes to zero, it is now earning you yield in bull and bear markets. So in bull markets, that's good, which is why we're going to have a lending pool. You'll be able to borrow 80% against it in a permanent line of credit from yourself. In bear markets, you'll HODL your native asset, and you'll go to Scott's shows. You'll do the things he's enabling because you have a certain TVL with him as one of his fans. And because you're doing that, you're now stacking sats using your ordinal as the proxy savings account. So we thought that was pretty cool. That's what we're announcing here. That's what BlockCity's enabled. That's what BitFans is bringing to market, and what Scott has the genius business model that he's dying to unlock all those fans for. So feel free throughout the night to do that. Now, the purpose of tonight is very simple. It's all about that moat.
The moat,
okay? If you imagine a business where you think any of what I just said sounds interesting or like it might take off. Imagine what happens when 7,000 individual pieces of art with collaborators like Braden start to go to market, and just by owning the thing, I'm earning 5%. Whether it goes up, whether it goes down, whether the extrinsic value of Scott's premium in the market goes up or goes down, it's always going to earn 5% in Bitcoin in my non-custodial wallet. That's pretty good. And now I can think of a world where maybe Scott sells me a ticket. Maybe he gives away a ticket. And he says it's $500, but I'm going to leave $250 in the IV. And now my ticket stub is earning me yield between the day I buy it and the day I go to the show, which doesn't exist today. And then after I go to the show, that ticket still earns me yield, and it still earns Scott yield. If he sells $100 million worth of tickets, like some artists could do, he's getting $1 million a year for the rest of his life, whether you like his music or not.